What is up to all the difference makers out there? Super excited for another episode. Welcome back. As usual, I have another amazing guest, and this guest is familiar for any regular Coffee and Grit listeners. Kris Hingst was my 17th episode, so this is episode 70, 71. This is episode 70. You're episode 70, so round even number, and you're episode 17. So you have 7 in both your numbers. So that's kind of cool. So he was episode number 17 all the way back in October of 2020. And what's cool about that episode is it really spurred and created a relationship between Kris and I that we started working together closely as he was building his business, and we got to know each other really, really well. And now it's come full circle as we've been working on some really cool stuff to partner in the last couple of weeks. And as we're going to market on that, I'm super excited to bring Kris on. I have worked for so many companies. I've been in sales for over 22 years. And so not only have I worked for so many different companies, but I've observed a lot of different companies. I've consulted a lot of different companies. And in almost every single one, there's a gap in the communication between the marketing team and the sales team that is limiting their offense. So when you think about a business, there's their business development team, which should be marketing and sales, is the offense, right? And when there's that gap in between that offense, there's never an aligned plan. So I'm super excited to have Kris today, and we're going to jam about sales and marketing. So if you are a business and sales and marketing is something that you're struggling with or something that you know you can get better, this is the episode to listen to. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Kris.
Thank you very much. The lucky number 7. I have to play that in the lotto too.
I know.
That's awesome.
Crazy. I didn't even put that together
That's
until
awesome.
just now.
No, I'm glad to be here. No, this is right up. You and I, we talk about this all the time. Sales and marketing. It's my passion. It's what I do. It's where I've cut my teeth. Smiling and dialing as a telesales rep back in the day in my early 20s, and then morphed into marketing and just helping companies, like you said, just bridge that gap. Because I feel like conversations I have with potential clients, it's a lot of like this just fighting and just, well, marketing's not doing that. Well, sales isn't doing that. And it's like, guys, you're on the same team.
You're on the same team.
To use a sports analogy, the goal is to get across the finish line to score, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to compete with each other, right? So it's when you think of a losing team, let's use football as an example. Sure.
You have the defense. It's like the offense sucks. Our quarterback is horrible.
Yeah,
You're not holding up your end. And
right.
The offense is like, you guys suck. You're giving up points. There's a lot of finger pointing. Right. On any losing team, there's finger pointing.
Bingo. And that's why it's important to have shared responsibility. And you all should have goals that align where you're achieving the same thing. And you're not competing with each other. I mean, at the end of the day, that's, you're there to win. Right? I mean, that's why you do what you do, whether you're in sales, marketing, or leadership. I mean, you're there to win. So how do we get there? And as you've come across a few, situations where there's just too much dysfunction, right? And how do you correct that? And I think, one of the things I see a lot is broken processes or no processes, right?
Yeah.
A marketing, was able to qualify a lead, and then it goes into outer space, black hole. It's just there in CRM, their CRM tool. And you're just like, okay, well, is somebody going to follow up or maybe try and call them or maybe send an email? And it's just really, it's interesting. But if you do it the right way and you develop an effective process, the sky truly is the limit. And I've seen it. I've seen it come to fruition. So that's, I'm happy to jam with you about that for a few. This is awesome.
And we've talked about this quite a few times. I get asked a lot when I start working with companies, or I start talking to an entrepreneur. We need more leads. We need more leads. And you alluded to that CRM, kind of the place where the prospect goes to die. Either you go to live and grow and build a relationship, or they just go to maintain the name and die, and nobody follows up with it. What is that importance to have a game plan after what do you do with a lead after you get it?
It's key, right? And I learned this early on in my career from a sales manager, and she said, strike while the iron's hot. I mean, timing. And I'll give you a perfect example. I'm working on a couple of webinar series with a new client, and I've been really, focusing in on emphasizing the timing of follow-ups is going to be critical here, because what's going to happen is we're going to capture their information. We're going to know who they are. We're going to know how they answered poll questions. We're going to know how they answered survey questions. Like, the conversation's already there.
Yeah.
Your job is having that immediate follow-up as a sales rep. And that's, to me, is what separates the haves from the have-nots, because I've seen it a ton, and it's a part of my, I don't know, just a part of my makeup where I get frustrated because, marketing gets them to the door. In sales, it's your job to bring them into the door and just tell them all these wonderful things that they can have and they can use and they can, purchase, because it's going to help them, get better, quicker, faster with whatever they do. The time is the key. Mm-hmm. It's all about speed. And there are statistics, and I have statistics that back it up, that, if you're following up within 2 hours after, let's say, this webinar, you're 21 times more likely to have a meeting. Like, who wouldn't want that? I guess is my point. If you're in sales, why, right? But I will say this because I used to be a sales rep, and to some degree, sales people are lazy because they do it when they want to do it, right? But in situations like that, when marketing is, and again, a lot of salespeople don't know all the setup and all the pre-work, and I mean, there's content creation, there's setting up presenters, speakers, collecting all this information, and the least you can do as a sales rep is just follow up on it, right? I mean, so having leadership understand that and being able to reinforce that is critical. To me, that's really a critical piece to overcoming the obstacle of, leads versus follow-up, and having those qualified conversations. Because look, you and I could discuss for hours about leads and what a lead means to you and me. We're going to have a different definition. Yeah. Just like everyone else's. Yep. Leadership executives, they have a different definition of it. The big thing for me that I've really been focusing in more on with clients is meetings booked. The biggest thing for me as a marketer is, pardon my French, I don't give a shit how many leads you have. What I care about from a quality standpoint is, are you booking meetings off of those? That's the key, because then you're really starting to accelerate your conversion rates from the meetings booked to opportunities to pipeline to revenue won business. So that's really the key. So for me as a marketer, my job is, how can I help you as a salesperson get those meetings booked? That's really what I care about. And I think that's where a lot of companies are missing, is there's a lot of bitching back and forth, pardon my French, that say, well, we have all these leads, CEO, ABC, Johnny Doe, but sales isn't doing anything with them. And then sales says, but these leads are shit. Why would I call them? And that's how you effectively move away from that broken process, and you streamline your process. Anyway.
So how would you streamline that process?
So a couple of things. Understand how to use your CRM tool. I mean, I cannot tell you how many companies have, and I've used a ton of different CRM tools in my day, but they don't take the time to invest in training the salespeople and the marketing folks from cradle to grave. What's the process, right?
Yeah.
Is it, and this is where you have to come together cohesively as a team. You're on the same team, right? Going after the same goal. And it's developing that process. But you have to get buy-in. Everyone has to be in agreement. There's going to be disagreements. There should be, right? But once you come to a consensus as a team, what has to happen, then that's where you're starting to gain that momentum that says, okay, we understand the process. We know what we need to do. And then we go after it, right? Now, as you start to develop that, then, marketers, right, you start to continue to tweak and test and analyze, right? You're experimenting. What content is resonating, right? And you're looking at the other big thing that I don't think marketers do enough of a good job at is the reporting and analytics, is understanding, open rates and conversion rates and impressions, right? Whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube or, emails, right? I mean, it's understanding trends. Trends are going to tell you if what you're creating from a campaign is working or not, right? Whether maybe it's a referral campaign, right? Maybe it's a client that, they have a really cool, innovative tool, but they're not seeing enough referral business come in, right? Maybe it's a calling campaign. But here's the thing. What does that process look like? Because I can bring it up and say, well, yeah, let's do it. But you have to formalize that process from cradle to grave. The biggest thing is you really got to just list it out step by step by step, right? We've talked about the EOS system, right? I mean, they're huge on what's the process, following the process, wash, rinse, repeat, right? Yeah. It's the same thing here. It's no different. But create the process and follow the process.
Well, and think about if sales is is along in on this plan, right? And I know what you're working on. We're able to communicate back and forth. Now I can get my team ready. They know what's coming up.
Bingo.
For example, you talked about a webinar series. Right. If my sales team is keyed in and they know what's coming up on this webinar series, they're keyed in. They know how to talk about it, and how to then, convert that lead into a sale.
Right.
We create a plan, right? And then they're on it in that 2 hours. Right. And there's not this is a bad lead, because they know exactly where the lead is coming from. They have an understanding. It's not just passing off like, they gave us a bad lead.
Right. You're sharing in the responsibility, right? Who doesn't want your company to be successful? That's why you're there.
Yeah.
Right. If you're able to double or triple a revenue, I mean, KPIs are going to dictate more times than not that you're going to see some of that flow into your pocket. I mean, of course you would want that. So again, it's that, look, Jason, it's communication. There's no such thing as over communicating. From the sales manager to the marketing manager to the executives on the team, this is how we're doing it. This is the process. You need to follow the process. Now, here's another big thing, and this, is holding people accountable. Mm-hmm. Look, I've had this happen, as a manager and as a sales rep, where if you don't have the bandwidth to do certain things, then somebody next to you is going to have to pick up the slack, right? I mean, it's part of the deal. And yes, to some degree, is there some favoritism? Of course there is, especially those that are really good at selling. Of course, I'm going to give them more qualified leads because they know what they're doing and they're damn good at it, right?
So anyway, it's going back to sports, right? You're not going to be like, Miggy is always the cleanup hitter. Why can't I be batting number 4? Because he, and this is not true now, but because he hits more home runs than he hits for average. He's the guy that we're going to put number 4 because it's best for the team.
Exactly.
It's best for the team, for the top closers to get the top leads. Right. You want them to be able to convert. It's not, I'm just going to take a shot on the guy that doesn't close anything, or girl.
Absolutely. But again, the manager, right, going back to the executives, has to know what the lineup looks like. Where do my players fit?
Yes.
Who's the leadoff hitter that can slap the ball, put it in play, and can get to first base without getting it out, right? Who is my heavy hitter that's going to clean up, as a cleanup hitter, right? Who's my power bat? So you also have to know your team and your roster, right? Mm-hmm. And this, that being able to put people in the right place at the right time, that is critical as well. I mean, I'm talking a lot of criticalities here, but it's all important because that cohesiveness and that synergy will give you the success you're looking for, other than clients time and time again saying, Jason, I need more leads. Okay, well, how are you doing it today? What's your process today? Well, if you don't have a process, then how are you tracking what you know what I mean? It's you go down that hole of, well, then how are you doing it today? Now, look, some businesses, just no fault of their own, they're good at what they do. It just, in spite of themselves is what I was looking for, right? But there are ways to just look at it, from an outsider perspective and analyze and just understand that if people had a formal process, man, that, to me, you want to talk about a game changer just in general in any industry, that's it. That's really it.
That is it. So much goes and dies in that broken process. Uh-huh. And that's what I loved coming in and doing and working with clients, because there are clients that all my clients are doing good stuff.
Right.
But I love coming in and seeing where is the broken part of the process, because no matter how good you are, there's something that we can get into a better place that will help convert more. Right. That will help, build your business. Right. And so it's always fun to see where that stopgap, or where the air is getting let out.
Absolutely. And understanding the data.
Yes.
You got to understand the data, right? And I'll go back to all my sales experience, right? With how many calls are you making a day? How many follow-up emails? What's your pipeline look like? What's your growth goals? What are your KPI goals? Key performance indicators. Sorry, I don't want to rattle off all these acronyms.
Yeah, I forget I know what KPI is. Right. Very, very
intimately, but yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But that really is the key, is just understanding. I always think of it this way too: current state, future state. Where are you at? Where do you want to go?
Yep.
And then you come in and say, I'll help you get there, but this is how we have to do it. If you follow this process and you follow these steps, I guarantee you that, if you're let's say you're selling $1 million and your goal is $1.5 million, then I'm going to show you the steps that are going to get you to that $1.5 million next fiscal year.
Yep.
But you got to follow the process. But you got to hold yourself accountable. right? And then the managers also have to help, hold your team accountable as well. I mean, that's another key component to this, right?
When we talk about KPIs, like why is that so important?
Oh, look, who, as a CEO, who wouldn't want to have predictive analytics that would help you understand what can I realistically achieve from a revenue standpoint, right? And then it just trickles down from there, right? If your number is, hey, I want to hit, I'm making it up $5 million. Okay, how are we going to get there? How many reps do we have? What's their quota, right? I'm a big fan of reverse engineering, right? So you start from the number and then you build up off of that, right? So revenue is 5 million. How many, what's the pipeline need to be? Let's say 3X or 4X is your common industry terminology, right? Okay, so that's 20, let's say 20 million. Well, how many opportunities do we need off of that, right? And then how many qualified meetings booked? Now, I'm not even going down the lead path right now, right?
Yep.
And that's how you really start to understand the analytics behind this is what we need to do. Like this isn't rocket science. Like I don't have a magic wand. I have 20 years of experience that I understand what I should or shouldn't do. I've learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Trust me. I've been on a PIP. Okay. So I've been on a PIP before as an inside sales rep, and it's not pretty.
So PIP, let's say another acronym.
Performance improvement plan.
Yep.
Put me on the spot there. But that was during the Lehman's collapse, right? And I was struggling to sell, at the time I was selling computer-aided design software. And the key for me out of that was following the process. It was, okay, look, here's the deal. We know the market, we know there's a recession, right? But we still need to keep the lights on. How are we going to do that, right? So let's amplify the calls. Let's amplify your follow-up. Let's amplify, the voicemails and all that. And that's what I did. And I followed that process so that coming out of that recession, then I actually had a book of business where I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I don't have to do as many cold calls anymore because I have people giving me renewal business, right?
Yes.
Residual business, whatever the right term is.
And that is when that's when you know you made it in sales, is when you get to that point.
Bingo.
It's a struggle until you get there. But once you get there, it's kind of like
the struggle is real. But once you get there, you're like, oh my God, like people are calling me saying, Kris, I need this, I need that. I need, let's do this. Or I need to talk about this project. And it's like
a space shuttle, right? You get pulled.
Yeah.
You're like the engine's got to go. You got to do the cold calls. You got to beat the streets. You got to do that stuff. And it's like climbing. And then once you get to the atmosphere, it pulls.
Right. And then what you'll find with situations like that is then all of a sudden you get these referrals, right? And then one of the things that, and I'm just as a fault as the next salesperson next to me, is I didn't ask for enough referrals. And I think back to my days, right? Going, why wouldn't I ask one of, like, let's say my top 10 customers say, hey, do you know of anybody else that could use our services, our products, our offerings, right? Like,
yep.
That's just another easy thing that, if I'm CEO Johnny and I come to you and I say, how come you're not making any calls? Like, what's going on here? Like, one of the things that should be rattling off in my head is, well, who are your top 10 customers? Call them and ask them for referrals.
Yep.
The other thing that I learned early on in my career is if you don't ask the question, they can't say no. If you don't ask the question, how do you know what the answer is?
Yeah.
Right?
You miss 100% of shots you don't take.
Man.
We'll keep
Wayne
quoting
Gretzky.
sports all day.
Yes.
Yeah. No. I worked in this company and I crushed it in referrals. That was where I got a lot of my business from. And then my location, I mentored them and they were crushing it in referrals. I remember going to a company meeting this one month and one of the managers from another location was like, we should just get rid of this referral fee. We paid out $25 for anybody that that referred somebody to us. And he was like, we should get rid of this referral fee because nobody's getting referrals. It's not working. I'm like looking at my teams, like, it's not working. It's not working because you're not talking about it. Like for me, you mentioned referrals and I laughed because I can still remember my spiel. It was every single interaction I had. Kris, if you enjoyed the service that you had today, if you enjoyed how I took care of you, I work off from referrals. That's how I pay my bills, how
Absolutely.
I feed my family.
Yep.
And so if you know of anybody that would like to be taken care of like me, a friend, a family member, or you hear somebody talking about how they can't stand their service, I appreciate you send them over to me. I've got people that work part-time jobs, Kris. Like I give a $25 referral fee. So I have people that are literally making $200, $300, $400 a month just referring people to me because again, if you like how, if not, then if you don't like how I did, but that was the spiel in like, it was just a quick, real quick thing. And it ingrained in people's minds. Some people would give me referrals right there. Some people would go and they'd tell their friends, and family, and I'd get people later. Other people, after I'd send out a thank you card, because I'd send out a handwritten thank you card, and I'd send out this thank you card, and they'd send their friends in with this thank you card. So their friends would come in with a thank you card that I wrote to them. Yep. It was like, hey, Brenda told me I needed to come in and see you.
That's awesome.
So it's like, it's fueling that fire. Yes. If you talk about it all the time, if you take care of people well, they wanna get other people to you.
and if you're solving their problems, right? And some of them could be perceived or they just don't know they have the problem, right?
Yep.
And being able to market and communicate that way. The other thing I wanted to chat with you about is, if companies are struggling with, well, we need more leads. Okay, so the first question I would ask is, where did you get your existing customer base from?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because then you have to figure out, well, what campaigns are working and what aren't. And then it's all about, again, you're testing and experimenting to figure out, okay, well, look, maybe there's, look, we get the majority of our clients from a conference that we speak at. Cool. Why not replicate that? Why not create your own mini conference at a central location and invite, the right personnel, the right target audience, the right personas, another buzzword out there, a marketing term, the right people at the right time with the right content. And that's where you're attracting the right people. That's where you're helping to grow your business, right? Maybe it's through live webinars. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's Instagram, YouTube, right? I mean, there's so many different ways to go about it. But that's the first question I would ask is how did you get your current customer base? And then, okay, so find what the trends are.
Yeah.
And then this isn't rocket science, right? So it's like, okay, well then why wouldn't we do the same thing? Like if you're selling a technology and you know that a specific conference works really well, then why wouldn't you double down?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's also all about just being very strategic and tactful and understanding who your customer base is and where are they, and then meet them there and give them the right content. That's the key. I mean, content is king, but you have to be very personalized in your approach. Because you have to speak to that person that's on the other side, right? Is it a sales manager? Is it director of events? Is it a director, CIO, CFO? It doesn't matter, right? Yep. You got to be able to spin it and personalize it to match their personality, their persona, right? And that's another big thing that I think people tend to kind of overlook, just thinking that, well, here's the lead, Jason. Just how to talk to him, so just I'm not going to
every person's the same. Every vertical is the same.
I'm not going to give you a talk track, right? I'm not going to give you a script, even though we can go down a whole. I hate scripts, and we can maybe talk about that as well. But at least some anecdotal points that you should be hitting on those calls, right? And I think again, that's also that disconnect between the marketing side and the sales side, right? So
that's a great segue into talking about scripts, because I hate scripts. I hate the roboticness of it. Yep. However, you have to be intentional in your communications. You can't just call up and say, "Hey, Kris, I'm calling to check in." I love the look on your face. For those listening audio, you don't see it.
I did a poll on LinkedIn the other day, and it's funny. I probably do it once a quarter now, and I play the game of, hey, what follow-up phrase is one that you see all the time? The following up, the touching base, the checking in, the bubbling up to the top, the circling back. Like, I can't tell you, but look, here's the deal. And I get that all the time, with vendors and people calling me to try and sell me stuff, but I know I also did it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
I did too.
And I did it ineffectively. I just didn't know, maybe a little bit, green and not knowing what to do, because maybe the training wasn't where it should have been, or the leadership wasn't on top of things like that. But to me, it's having a purpose. I've told you this before, right? And I educate this on my LinkedIn channel is, what's the purpose of your call? What's the intent? Lead in with that so that they know right away whether they want to engage or not. Because at the end of the day, they're going to make that decision. Because you could even say, hey, Kris, I'm checking in. Any thoughts, comments on the quote I sent you? I haven't had a chance to look at it, right?
Yep.
Now, if you're persistent, you're going to say, hey, can you pull it up really quick? Let's review it, right? Or you're scheduling a meeting to go over it, again.
Next step.
Bingo.
Next step.
Exactly, right? So it's all about, again, you're always tweaking. There's never I don't have a magic wand, so there's not like one right way that's always going to be successful all the time, right? You don't know what
unique people. You're unique.
Exactly. You don't know what's happening on the other end. I mean, they could have personal issues, or you don't know. But you have to effectively know how to engage right away and asking that question. The purpose of my call is, there's a technology solution that your buddy down the street is using that they've seen a ton of success with. I think you could have similar success. Do you have a minute to chat? What do you mean, Kris? What technology? Well, I've got this widget thing that's just super duper cool.
Yeah.
That's going to accelerate your growth by 2x. Oh, tell me more. I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this? Let's set up a meeting. How about next Thursday, right? And then you're reeling them in. We're fishing. Now we're using the fishing analogy, right? You're reeling them in, and then you're having a meaningful conversation. That's the key. Is you got to have a meaningful conversation. Too many kids out there, and I want to coach them all, but it's like, I know you're nervous. I was there too. I get it. You're nervous. You're anxious, right? You've got a ton of anxiety, but at the end of the day, what's your goal? You know you have something that you can provide them.
Yep.
But you got to be able to convey that, right?
Yep.
You said not a script, but anecdotal points, a process that you will follow, that you know which questions to ask. Let the conversation flow. And the other big thing that I learned early on is your 80-20, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about this for hours, is listening. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to have a pregnant pause.
Yep.
That's actually a win. I was in early on. Look, I'll fully admit it. I was awful at it. I was scared. I was afraid to I didn't know what they were going to say. I didn't know what you were going to say. And then how do I react? How do I respond, right?
Sales in life in general is easy. We make it all hard with our insecurities and our inner talk, right?
Absolutely.
And so like it makes so much sense in the world that I want to be quiet. I want to ask good questions, and I want to learn. If I'm going to serve you, if I'm going to take care of you from a sales standpoint, and I want you to be my client, I need to learn as much about you that's relative to what I'm going to help you with as possible.
Right.
Instead of putting all that pressure on me that I've got to talk or I've got to prove myself, or I've got to, and we talk ourselves right out of the sale.
100%. And I think that, look, the same thing applies to clients that are looking for more leads.
Yeah.
And being able to ask the right questions. Well, what, like, again, what pain are you struggling with today? Like, why aren't you, help me understand, why aren't you getting the leads that you think you should? And then help me understand what, like, can you quantify it? Like, if somebody say, Jason, we're just not getting enough leads. Well, what does that mean?
What does that mean? And that's where the KPIs come in. That's where how many leads do you want?
Right.
Right? What's the goal?
Exactly.
And again, that's great and all, but it comes down to meetings.
Absolutely.
It comes down to, some of those hard tactics. But the key is, and the reason why they're missing out on those opportunities is because they don't have a strategy going in to call. I was working with the young sales guy the other day, and nice guy, he's got some talent and everything else, but his call was horrible. And I'm like,
okay,
if you called me, he was like, I don't know why people aren't booking meetings with me. I'm like, well, if you called me with that spiel, I wouldn't book a meeting with you either.
Right.
Like, it's just the fact of the matter. That's the way it is.
Right.
Now that's why we've got to, in sales, we have to train our people.
Bingo.
We talk about not a script, but we've got to practice. We got to know what is our value.
Absolutely.
What are our opportunities? What are their pain points? To go back to what you talked about, we need to understand who are they and what are they going through right now? What are some of their challenges? What's their vision? What's their goal? And what's standing in their way? If you want to know what the pain points, where do they want to be and what's standing in their way, and what is your solution? How do you get them to where they want to be?
Absolutely.
And if you know that as a salesperson, and what the marketing plan is, we can come up with a strategy to call those people 2 hours right after, and have effective phone calls instead of just the boring, I'm calling to follow up or whatever.
Or if again, you have to look at the reports and analyze it and figure out what the trends are. Like, hey, okay, so you have 100 clients. Help me understand what's their persona, what's their job title, what do they do, right?
Yeah.
Well, Kris, the majority of them are director of events. Okay, so why wouldn't we find or cultivate a list of director of events of other companies that do the same thing, and why wouldn't we have a calling campaign off of that? And then, Jason, can you help us with coaching and training and figure out what questions we should ask based on that? Because you're already talking to them, you know their pain. Again, this isn't rocket science.
Not rocket science. It is science, though.
Yes.
As you talk about that,
Fair.
We've talked about this, the reticular activating system.
Yes.
We've had this conversation quite a few times, but it's being able to boil it down. And people think they can serve everybody, or they can have a message, a marketing campaign, or a sales campaign. They can talk to everybody. It's dead wrong. And there's a riches and the niches saying for a reason.
Love that.
Because you nailed the head, you nailed the hammer on the head. Is if you can boil down who is the persona, or who is the person that you're going to be selling to or talking to? Is it a facility manager? Is it the CEO? The CEO and the facility manager are two completely different people, and you can find them in two completely different places. So the more I know about this person, the much easier I can find them. If I go out and I'm at a networking meeting and I say, I work with facility managers of large manufacturers, it keys somebody's mindset to I know somebody that does it. My brother-in-law, that's what he does. Oh, great. Now you have a potential connection versus, we work with all manufacturers across the, Midwest region.
Love that. Riches and niches. And structuring that process. and updating on that process and reporting on that process and over communicating on that process. And again, analyzing those but I love the other thing you brought up about the vision and the mission. I think sometimes just people just don't you cannot boil the ocean. Okay. And I've seen this too many times. Stay in your lane. This is what I've told many of people. Stay in your lane. Okay. What are you good at? What industries do you serve? Look, and if you get really good at that, maybe there's a way, from an adjacent standpoint that we can kind of, maybe dabble in another lane that might be a fit for but until you have that figured out, you cannot boil the ocean. Because then you're all going still crazy going, we're not selling enough. How come the leads aren't coming in? Because you're trying to serve the wrong people with the wrong message that you think will just resonate with everybody. And you and I know that's a recipe for a disaster. Stay in your lane, know who you represent, understand your value and mission, and go after those target audiences that fit the niche that you serve.
Yeah.
What problems are you solving for who? The facilities manager, okay, there's certain things, maybe it's something in the manufacturing warehouse or certain equipment that they need, or maybe more cost-effective workflow.
I brought that up because I have a client that's a corporate cleaner or a commercial cleaner, and so the facility managers is one of his people he's speaking to,
right?
But he's got that persona identified.
Bingo.
He knows who they are. He knows what their pain point and challenges are. And so he can communicate with them much better.
And he's got the process.
And
he knows the pain points. Because he's heard it over and over again, right?
Yep.
And he knows what questions to ask.
He's also got core values to understand who's a good client and who's not. Who do we go after? Who do we not? Who do we, do we bend these rules?
Sure.
Is this a person that we want to work with? No. They don't fit this criteria. And so he went to a visit a couple weeks ago in he was asking all kinds of questions.
Sure.
He was trying to get to identify what the root of the problem was, like why are they looking for somebody new, that kind of thing. And the person that he was dealing with was like, those are pretty personal questions. I don't really want to answer them.
Wow.
And he's like, okay. And so when we were talking on the phone, I'm like, that sounds like they're not a fit from the core values. It sounds like, a core value for them is transparency and having that open relationship. And so that's not transparency. That doesn't meet the core value.
I love that you brought up transparency, and I think that's where a lot of companies can learn about being transparent about where you're at. I don't care if you're the CEO, executive team, or you're a sales rep, or you're on the marketing side or human resources side or IT side, like understanding where your company's at. I mean, another big thing that I always pitch to clients is another acronym, QBR, quarterly business review. But, it's like the same thing with the Rock's 90 days of the EOS system is understanding current state, future state, and understand where the business is at.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be times where you're down a quarter, you're up a quarter, and understanding, okay, this is where we're trying to go. These are the things we have in motion. And I learned so much as understanding just the operation of the business. And it wasn't even like in my jurisdiction, right? Or in my wheelhouse. That can add tremendous value. Because you don't know who people are connected with, right? I mean, gosh, nowadays with being connected virtually on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube and go Slack and Teams. I mean, there's so many tools out there that you can easily connect with people, right? But understanding the operation and the process, man. Again, I keep bringing up EOS because it just makes a ton of sense that having that strategy and then executing that strategy and then reinforcing that strategy, but holding people accountable.
Yeah.
And knowing where people stand. So, you've got your top performers, your mid performers, your low performers. That's just the way it is in most sales organizations, right? And how can I elevate those that are in the mid tier to the top tier? Is there somebody I can bring up from the bottom? I've seen it before. I mean, I've seen a ton of people go from zero to hero because they got the right coaching, they had the right strategy and process.
Yes.
And they followed it, Jason.
Yep.
And it's just like, man, you high five.
I've witnessed that same thing. I had a guy in my organization that was struggling constantly and was always looking for his next opportunity. And when he finally followed the process, when he finally opened up and just committed to the process, I mean, I made a deal with him. Like, if you'd work this for 3 months and it doesn't work out, dude, do whatever you want to do. But just give this 3 months and work the process. And he did. And he made more money every single month until he was making over $100,000 a year selling cell phones. And then when I left, he took over my role because he elevated up to leadership. And then he took over my role as the director of the whole company. So it's a matter of those people can be coached and put in the right situation. but you have to identify, and have a process and work with them.
Yeah, and stick to the process. I feel like I'm listening to a coach, and I don't know why I'm just listening to a coach. Like, stick to the process, right?
Stick to the process.
College, pro, whatever. But it's also being able to, again, and I think this is where a lot of companies fall short with their CRM tool, is they just don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
And understanding what's the right process with my CRM, customer relationship management tool. For those that don't know what CRM stands for. Sorry, I'm the acronym king today. But knowing how to effectively utilize that tool is going to be critical, because more times than not, what companies don't know is there's a lot of data in there that they're not aware of, Jason. And you're like, let me peel back the onion here. Let me peel back all these layers. This is what's happening and why, right? And that's where you're able to uncover part of the pain of, Jason, we're not getting enough leads. Okay, well, help me understand. Again, it goes back to the why.
Yep.
And then asking those probing questions, that are finally going to get you to the bottom of what's happening.
Yep.
That's obviously what's keeping you up at night. But let's help you solve that problem so that you're able to sleep easy moving forward.
Even making your calls and talking about that next step, right? If you have a next step in your conversation and you're taking those notes, that next call, that next follow-up is very easy because you had the next step. I'm calling you, Kris, like I told you I would,
right,
to talk about
absolutely
XYZ.
Yep. And I think that's huge. And I think that's where, some of the sales folks fall short is, they think, oh my God, Jason, I just had the greatest conversation ever. Okay. So what do you do now? Well, I'm not really sure. Where's your process? Well, I'm not sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, those are fun opportunities because they know how to sell. They know how to have a conversation. They know how to connect with the people on the other side of the phone, or
now it's just process.
Right.
To go back over what we're talking about and to define what process is, what is that next step? Right. That's part of process, right. To always have a next step in place in your conversation. Right. So it's steering the relationship.
Absolutely. It's defining it, and it's executing it, and then it's doing it over and over again. Like, it's funny. I don't know who, somebody I was chatting with a few months ago that said sales was boring. And I was like, wait, what? He's like, look, Kris, if you follow the process, again, it's boring because you're doing the same thing over again and you know what to do and you're making good money. Like, it's not like this extravagant, like I'm a rocket scientist that's trying to solve all these, ridiculous equations. Like,
yeah.
If you stick to the process, the success is there. Anyway, I know we've said process a million times, but that's where the success lies. Honestly, that's where you're able to.
It's where it lies, or again, where it bottlenecks, or where you're losing all your steam.
Right.
I've seen people that have had amazing products, and they'll get their customers or potential customers super excited, but then they don't strike while iron's hot. They don't have a process to go to the next step. Right. I know, even being a young salesperson, we talk about like having our own mistakes and learning our own lessons. I'll go way back in the day when the BlackBerry first came out. I didn't know very much about the BlackBerry. In fact, it scared me when somebody would ask me, tell me about a BlackBerry, because I didn't know very much about it. And so I would just like kind of stumble. I wasn't confident to talk about it. And so when somebody asked me, I would I've tried to talk them out of buying that. I went and got so good and learned everything I could about the BlackBerry. I got a BlackBerry myself so I could use it, and I became the top BlackBerry salesperson because I had more confidence around that product and that service. If you don't know pricing, if you're not confident throughout your process, you're gonna pull off and not strike while iron's hot. You're not going to use that momentum to close the deal.
Oh man, I think back to believing in what you do. You do. Mm-hmm. Honestly, you can fake it till you make it to some degree.
Oh yeah.
But at some point, it'll run its course, and you'll get frustrated and you'll look for another job. You have to believe in what you do.
I say I can train anybody to sell it with two caveats. One, you have to believe in what you're doing. I can't teach somebody to sell something that they have no value in, or they feel like they're ripping people off, because if they feel that way, they're probably ripping people off. Second thing is you have to have some level of common sense because you're a problem solver. I was telling my son the other day, I'm like, the worst thing in the world is try to train somebody in sales that has no common sense, because you're like you have to not only, it's like being a comedian and then having to explain why the joke is funny.
So true. It's, like you said, there is a science to it. I mean, you're creative. You are the jack of all trades, in my opinion, and I say that with the utmost respect, because you're doing a lot of things, right? You're juggling your pipeline, you're juggling your follow-ups, you're juggling your new calls, you're juggling the reports you have to create for your manager, whoever. I mean, you're doing a lot. Like, in my opinion, you're running your own business.
Yeah.
And it's funny, subordinates would used to laugh at me when I said, well, it's your book of business. What would you do? And they're like, it's not my book. I said, yes, you own it. It's your book of business.
Yes.
It's your job to maximize the output from that book of business. You own that.
You own it.
Yeah. And once they started to realize that, oh, yeah, this is my territory, like, okay, so there's your opportunity. Own it. Believe in it.
My favorite things to correct, and just real quick, is that when people say I'm just a salesperson, like that's a mindset in itself. When you're just something, you're minimizing, and you can't be just a salesperson and be successful.
Nope.
You've got to salespeople walk through and say, I'm a lion in the jungle. I'm, like you've got to have a certain level of confidence as you're doing it. And like, and it's not even bad. I'm a lion in the jungle, but I know I can see I'm helping so many people with what I'm doing. Yes. I can see, I can see my value of my products and services take these people to the next level. And you have that belief level. Absolutely. It's all about belief.
I love it. 100%. And the confidence has to be there, believing in yourself and believing what you do. I mean, because it'll exude. People will be able to hear that.
Yeah.
On the other side of the, the call, the virtual call or the phone or whatnot, right?
Yep.
They'll be able to pick up on that stuff. And you're right. It's that mentality. It's huge because I had days where I could do no wrong, and I had other days where I couldn't do anything right. You know what I mean?
Oh no, for sure. Yeah.
You need
sounds like my golf game.
You need people there to pick you up.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's that's why we keep going back to sports, right? It's a team. We're in this together.
I could run off sports analogies all day for sales and marketing and life in general.
Absolutely.
And I know we've had so many conversations where it's like, and you have a podcast called Jab and Knock Out the Competition.
Yep.
That's fun. I was typing the description. I was going to do a little play onto that, and then I didn't. But.
Gotcha. No, it's fun, but go ahead.
I was going to dive in a little bit because you talked about being a jack of all trades, and I wanted to go in and talk about something that is bringing us together and some exciting stuff we're going to be working on, because when I started my business, I knew sales and leadership was like the path that I wanted to go down. That's why I started, because I saw so many businesses, so many small business owners that were struggling. Yep. And I had a lot of success in that area. And I saw so many people that were going out of business because they weren't finding the right leadership to help them scale, to help them sell, to help them develop their team. Right. And so I went out there and I started my company, and coming back with the EOS thing full circle, as I started getting clients and I'm sitting on companies, leadership teams, I realized that I don't just, and it's like a reminder, because I've been working with people so intimately on their sales process and selling more and a lot of mindset stuff, because it's like selling is like the gym, like you can go to the gym all you want, but if you eat like shit, you're going to, it's like 80% is your diet, 20% is actually going to the gym. Yep. In sales, 80% is your mindset, 20% is the actual communication and everything else. Like you'll get that stuff down, because if you have the belief level, you'll get everything else. It's, so you'll get the results. But anyway, so I was in my lane, and then all of a sudden I'm on these leadership teams, and I'm sitting in at their L10s and they're in their meetings. It's like, wow. It's that reminder of I bring so much more than just a sales coach, and I say that after I was making fun of, but when you're just working on this one area, you bring so much more from that leadership team. And then I remembered all of our conversations, and you're talking about, some struggles you've had with clients in the sense of seeing so clearly where you can take them to the next level, but trying to get the time of day to get them to open their eyes and have a meeting with you to just help them help themselves, right? Yep. And we've had so many in-depth conversations about being on a leadership team with a company to be able to have that voice, that seat at the table to make an impact change. And I'll use an example. I'm working with a company, and I was working with talking with the salesperson a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about her belief level, and she was like, as we're selling this stuff, I'm like, they're hitting numbers, or they're selling, they're doing some good stuff. But she was like, my concern is as we keep selling and we're growing, that operations isn't going to be able to maintain.
Sure.
I'm valid concern. I totally get what she's talking about. And I was able to help her and validate it and keep her calm and moving in the right direction, because I said, that's for me to worry about. And I want you to always give me that feedback. If you start to see something happening on the inside and you have a concern, bring that to me, because then I have that seat on the leadership team that I can help the company grow from another level. We can help identify, because we're a team.
Right.
I'm not operations. There's an awesome operations guy, but I can help him point from, again, because we're all one company. My team is seeing something different than his team. They're seeing the company and the things from a different lens. So I can give him that feedback and be like, this is going to be a concern. Let's start proactively putting a plan in place, as opposed to like, oh shit, the house is burning down. Oh shit, we can't maintain these levels.
Right.
Oh shit, we sold too much.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And there's so much there to unpack, but that's, so now we've had this conversation and talking about working together in coming in to companies and in having this leadership seat to all this stuff we're talking about, the marketing. And I know you've had a recent experience where the sales director was not on the same page, which created a big roadblock.
Right. Right.
And unfortunately, a big roadblock for the company's progress.
Right.
So tell me, what is that? What are you thinking?
Yeah, when you said lens, I was thinking, looking at it from a different lens. There's nothing wrong for any business out there, I don't care how big or small you are, to get perspective from an outsider's point of view. Like you and I mean, I think sometimes people just assume I'm a marketer. Well, I'm not. I'm more than that. I'm a sales enabler. I'm a growth consultant. I can help you from a CMO standpoint, strategize and execute your plan, your go-to-market plan, competitive analysis, SWOT analysis. I've done it all. And that's where, again, I keep going back to like the salesperson, right? Where you're not just there is so much more to it than just that, whether you're a marketer or salesperson, right? The experiences, that you obtain hopefully serve you in helping. My big thing is sharing is caring. And what I care about, what I'm also passionate about, is helping other people, helping other companies avoid pitfalls that I struggle with, or that I've seen other companies like the one you just brought up struggle with, where, I was very transparent with, the executive team, saying, look, this person's demeanor, style doesn't fit the culture. It doesn't fit the mission, doesn't fit the vision and the value of what you bring to the table. And I said, at some point, there's going to be a huge caveat. There's going to be a huge, I can't think of the right term, but you're going to hit a wall and you're not going to know what to do at that point, because when that happens, he literally is going to, whatever, motivational, whatever culture you built, they're going to destroy. And I've seen it, unfortunately, multiple times. And picking up the pieces is easier said than done, right? So it's also knowing your audience, knowing who you're serving, and being aware of your surroundings. And that's where I go back to the L10s and the rocks, and having those cadences, they're crucial, because it really helps you understand, where's everyone at? What are they working on? Like, is there something, so like that to-do list, right? And, hey, let's table that for, the follow-up discussion with, is there somebody else who maybe can either, maybe team up with you and fix that, resolve that problem, right? Because maybe it's a big problem that needs to get fixed just for the company in general, right? So being able to understand just the culture and the flow, to me, is a critical aspect of the growth of your business, no matter where you're looking to take it, right? Whether it's growing headcount or just growing revenue, or, maybe you're streamlining your processes, Anyway, I could ramble on, but those are some things I think about when you brought that up, just about, being aware of your surroundings and understanding the walls do talk. They do. And I don't care if you're here and our clients in California, the walls do talk. Mm-hmm. You will hear it from other people, and being able to just listen to what's happening around you.
Too, by the way. So, I mean, it's such, you hear what's going on from different people. Yes. And I've had situations where half the people are painting this story, and then you start to dive in, and it's like, there's a completely different story here.
Right. So, what, right? It's right. The truth is somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah, the truth is somewhere in the middle for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's also having the right people in the right seat. Again, I keep going back to EOS, but that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And not being afraid to make tough decisions, and I've done it myself, and I've coached other, clients to do it, where it's just, they're just not in the right seat. And it could be, maybe it's the personality, or maybe it's just they're not a good fit for that specific role. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion for a different day.
Yeah.
But that's also a critical aspect to company success.
Well, and so it makes me think about, because we've had this conversation, and you're crushing it for a client in the sense of getting all these leads in,
right?
And then because you're not in that sales role,
right,
and it's not going in the direction it needs to, all those leads are just going to die.
Right.
And so all of your efforts, you feel really good about your efforts. Your client feels really good about your efforts. Right. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's not a win unless we converted those leads into sales.
Right.
And so that hurts.
Absolutely.
And so when there's a feud between marketing and sales, that's a lot of times the reason is because somebody's not holding up their end of the bargain. And it is hard to find good leaders, and especially leaders that connect from that standpoint. And so when we think about it, we started talking about it, it's really funny. It's just kind of out of the blue. I'm hitting this wall of like, I need help. And then I reached out to you for coffee, and the night before I was sitting and I was doing dishes, and I was like, man, all these conversations that me and Kris have had about like sitting on that leadership team and being able to play a bigger impact and like, having that voice because you have the experience to be able to improve and impact the quality of the company, because you see things they don't, and you see things from the outsider that they don't from your experiences, just like I do.
Right.
It's like, wow, what if we partnered up and started working with companies and we came in and was their sales and marketing leadership?
Absolutely.
And we're able to combine what you do from that just engine of driving leads, but I'm working on that end with you, and we have a strategy and a plan to convert those leads into sales, that when there's a campaign, the sales team is ready to go, they're trained and ready to run. And what does that do for a company from an offensive standpoint right out of the gates?
Yep, absolutely. Well, it puts you in the best position to win, to succeed, right? So if all right, so I'm the marketer, right? Growth marketer. And I bring him, I always think of it like a castle, right? I bring him to the front door of your castle, or the company's castle, right? And if that handoff is smooth, or you greet him at the door saying, hey, look, I want to show you this amazing castle that we built just for you, right? And that handoff, man, when it's smooth like that, Jason, I mean, the sky's the limit. Because you're crushing it. Upselling is another sales buzzword, right? I used to upsell all the time on certain products I used to sell. But the net of that, it's a win-win. I mean, there is no, when you're doing it that successfully and the synergy is there and the collaboration is there, you can't lose. I'm just going to say it. You can't.
Yeah, you can't. It's like, again, in sports, when you have a perfect defense and a perfect offense, when those two teams come together, you're scoring and you're holding the opponents down to zero. You're undefeated, or you're winning majority of games.
And then when you get in that zone, and you feel unstoppable, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think of the New England Patriots that were 16-0 a couple of years ago, right? I mean, they were just on a roll that was just unprecedented. It was insane. But they found the right fit. They found the right people that needed to be put in the right positions, and it was just like boom, clicked. And then, man, you build that momentum, and use another analogy of the snowball, and that sucker just starts rolling downhill. There's nothing that's going to stop that train. There's nothing that's going to stop that, that momentum. And that's, that to me
grows and breeds.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. That to me is euphoria. That I'm a giver. I love helping people. I love helping clients. That high-fiving and doing stuff like that is euphoric to me. Go ahead.
It breeds, it's like the people there that are working with you can see that, they're part of that. Right. And so that's how you train and develop people. And so as we plug into that seat in helping shape that future, we may not be in that seat forever,
right?
But it's a matter of being able to mentor and grow and give that client a structure,
right?
In a machine that is running, that now their people are empowered to step in the seats, if that's the case, right? And I know you've had a lot of success working with the marketing department and mentoring them, and me the same thing in sales. And it's like helping them truly. If we walked away and their machine is running and they've got the right people in the right seats of their leadership team, like how incredible is that?
That's why I do what I do. I mean, that's why I love creating the right process for the right people at the right time and tag teaming with you. I mean, it's a win-win, because the experiences and knowledge and insight. And again, giving a different perspective. I mean, I cannot tell you as I look back going, man, if only this company would have had you or I back then. It's crazy because sometimes you get so inclusive, Jason, that you don't see what's on the outside, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's why it's always good just to kind of take a step back going, what's missing here? I keep going back to, hey, I'm, CEO, I'm not getting enough leads. Okay, well, let's figure out why is that?
Yep.
And let's solve the problem, right? Let's solve that problem, but let's do it together. It can't be silos.
Yep.
But let's do it together as a team.
Ah, so huge. It's so huge. And I know there's a lot that we have a lot of synergies, but
Yes.
it's like getting to know you through pretty intimately on your business
Yep.
and what you like, what you don't like. And
Right.
we have that same thing where it's like loving to see change, like it can get boring for working for the same client for a really long time.
Right.
So it's all about like, let's set them up for success and then tackle another, because there's so many companies out there struggling that are in this boat that we've been talking about all this time.
I think companies and leaders just have to realize that they don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I think, but being able to have that ability to look inside yourself and just say, you know what, I need help. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
We are human, right? I mean, we're not robots. We learn a lot from mistakes, don't we? And being able to tag in, referrals and those that were referenced to you, right? I mean, building that network, Jason. I mean, that's been huge.
Yeah.
Having like no trust, which I know you talk about all the time, but having that tribe of people that believe in you, trust in you because they know what you can do, and being able to spread that out, to other companies that need our help. It's huge because there's going to come a time, and I don't care who you are, what industry you're in, where you need somebody else's perspective.
It's you talk about being in the weeds, and how do you find the easy answers? And it's really hard to do when you are in the weeds and you do this every single day. And that's what I love, and why my job is so easy. And I know it's probably pretty similar for you, is you walk in and you can see it.
Right.
You're looking over above because you're not in the emotions of the day to day. You're not there grinding day to day.
Right.
So it's very easy to spot what the problems are.
Right.
And again, you could be a great company. Every company still has their problems. It's the good to great, right? By Jim Collins, he talks about what prevents good companies from becoming great is being good with being good. Deciding not to grow anymore, and we're good where we're at. There's a way to go higher,
right? But again, it's building that network. It's building that tribe. It's knowing who to connect with, right? I mean, I'm always learning. I was telling somebody this morning. I don't remember who it was, that she was equating dogs with sales, and I was like, wait, what? I'm sorry, how can I learn to do sales from dogs? It was hilarious. I'm like, help me understand this. But what she said made complete sense. And I was like, I just learned something new. Being able to connect with people like you and reaching out to other, I'm a big fan of reaching out to other folks that have been successful or that are on the trajectory of being successful and connecting with them and asking them, how did you do it?
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I like picking your brain going, how did you do it? How did you become so successful? What's your journey? What's your next step? Like, how do you keep yourself motivated, right? Like, to me, I can't do this alone. I need a tribe. I need an army with me, right? And you're always learning. And that's one of the things that I just try to just do on a daily basis, is learn something new.
Yeah.
Maybe it's from other people. Maybe it's from a podcast. Maybe it's from an article you read online. Maybe it's a YouTube clip, right? But you're always learning something, right? Change is constant. It's never static, right?
Yep.
Do you want to be good, or you want to be good to great? Like, at some point, things have to change, that the dynamics have to evolve. That could be personnel, that could be the process, that could be tech stack tools that you have. Like, in order to evolve, you have to make decisions that are going to allow you to do that.
And if you don't evolve, sometimes you end up like Blockbuster. You know, they were given a lot of opportunities to evolve, but the people that were in the company were in the weeds, and they were like, no, people are always going to want to come to the video store and buy videos and pay late fees. That's the way it's always going to be.
And Netflix said differently, right? We'll trump you on that. And
there was a problem though for Netflix to come along and solve. Exactly. I know I had so many late fees from Blockbuster for missing a day or whatever. Right. So, but you talked about experience and your experience level coming to companies as a value. How have your resources and your connections, your personal relationships, how has that come back through and helped with clients?
I think reciprocity is the one word I would give you, where, and you know, we've talked about it, that, you know, give and you will receive back. And I mean, not to sound religious, but it's happened, you know, where I've been on certain, you know, professional training webinars, and I'm chatting with people on there. And next thing I know, I'm connecting with them on LinkedIn. It's like, well, wait, there's an opportunity here that it wasn't like I was looking for it. It was almost like kind of osmosis, where it just happened, right? Yeah. Like I wasn't like, okay, I want to do this to this. Like it was natural, right? And the more that you do it, the more that you're going to get back tenfold. And I truly believe that. And I've worked on that a lot the last couple of years, is giving, you know, offering some advice for those younger entrepreneurs out there in their 20s, you know, that millennial crowd. And then knowing that some way, somehow it just comes back. Sometimes it comes back in droves, you know, and that gives me the motivation and the desire to continue to keep building and building and building, right? It's those relationships. Relationships matter. Now look, but it's meaningful relationships. I think there's a difference there, right? I mean, people always talk about in the corporate world, especially, that, you know, keep your friends close, but your frenemies closer, right? I mean, I don't know. We could talk about that for hours, but knowing who to trust, trust, knowing who you can count on, right? Yep. Knowing that the person next to you has your back. I was just talking to a CEO of a manufacturing company that said, I bring on people on board that I know will have my back, you know, in times of need. And I trust them, right? When I have to tap out, I know that they're going to tap in. That's powerful.
That is powerful. That's awesome. This is a total change of subject. We were talking earlier about how can I learn to sell from dogs. It made me think about my favorite sales movie ever is Tommy Boy with Chris Farley. And if you,
oh yeah, I know it.
Like, not many people think about this as being a sales movie, even though, I mean, he's out selling, right? Yes. He's trying to save the company and whatnot. Yep. But it's such a great sales movie to me. And it dawned on me when watching it a couple years back. I'm sitting there and I was like, oh my God, this is like what I do every day, because so many people try to be someone else when they're selling. So many people try to be who their boss said they should be, or who they tried to learn from, or they try to be like the best salesperson in the company or whatever. And so they change their personality and who they are. And guess what? People can smell a fraud from a mile away. And so nobody wants to deal with a fraud. And not only that, but it's hard enough to be confident being yourself, let alone trying to be confident being somebody else. And so you can see right through that. And so Tommy Boy is out there like failing. And then he's in the restaurant, in this restaurant scene. And he like really, I can't remember what he wanted. He wanted his breakfast done a certain way. And the lady was like, nope, kitchen's closed. We can't do that. And he went on this spiel and just started talking. And she was like, God, you're sick. Let me go get that for you. And it was like, oh my God, I sold her. I got her to do it. And it was because he did it within his own personality, within his own style. And then all of a sudden he's converted and he was just himself instead of trying to be his dad. And all of a sudden he was successful.
At the end of I love you brought that up. I love that movie. Be true to yourself. And I learned this as well, that, you know, I went through quite a few corporate, sales trainings, Dale Carnegie. I can rattle them off: Articulate, Spin Selling, Sandler training. I feel like I've done them all. But at the end of the day, and I tell clients this all the time, that it has to fit your personality.
Yes.
Because once you go outside your comfort zone, like you said, you can smell it a mile away. I mean, that's another big thing, Jason, is stay in your lane, know what you're good at, but continue to learn. And again, apply that sense of how can that fit with my personality? How can that fit with my demeanor, my dynamics of my personality, right? That's another big thing.
It's huge. It's huge. Be yourself.
Absolutely.
Be yourself. So,
Yep.
man, Kris, I really appreciate you coming down. It
Absolutely.
was last minute, but it was like, I was so happy that it happened. I think everything happens for a reason and ties
Yes, it
together.
does.
So thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on here. This has been fantastic. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.